Hello, everybody. Richard Tremens here from Artificial Lawyer, and welcome to another LexisNexis live webinar. This evening, what we're looking at is strategy, in particular innovation strategy, and how that may or may not change in what is now very clearly an era of generative AI. With us is a fantastic panel from several law firms and also a representative of LexisNexis. And let's just go around and get each of those panelists to introduce themselves. Shilpa, would you like to begin?
Sure. Shilpa Bhandarkar, I am a partner at Linklaters. I lead our client tech and AI team. And as part of that, I'm responsible for innovation, building technology, and in this context, co-chairing our generative AI steering group.
Fantastic. Thank you. Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen Waldron. I'm the Director of Product Development for LexisNexis in the UK. I've been involved with digital product management and innovation for around the last 20 years and leading a good deal of change in that time as well.
Fantastic. Helder?
Elder Santos, I'm the Head of Legal Tech and Innovation at Bird & Bird. I'm also part of our AI steering group and work very closely with our executive team on the strategy.
Fantastic. And Emily?
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Monasteriotis. I'm Global Head of Dispute Resolution at Simmons & Simmons, and one of my challenges, or maybe I should describe it as an opportunity, is engaging everyone in my team in relation to our AI strategy.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thanks everyone for being here. Right, well, let's get straight in, but before we get into the AI bit and get too technical, let's just sort of explain what we're talking about. And maybe I'll pick on someone or you can volunteer. What do we actually mean by an innovation strategy? It's a term you see a lot in the press. You'll see a lot of it in law firm press releases. But what actually is an innovation strategy? All right, I'm going to pick on Emily.
Okay, that's fine. In my mind, it's very much kind of a roadmap that you and a commitment to how to develop your Gen AI strategy, because you can't, we're talking about kind of culture of change and culture of innovation. You can't create that culture of change and culture of innovation unless those who you're trying to bring along on the journey understand what you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to achieve it. And I think kind of a AI strategy is very much the document kind of at the heart and the core of what it is that you're trying to achieve in order to engage people to come on that journey with you.
So it is actually a written document. It's not sort of a fluffy, hey, we all share this lovely strategy. But there is a thing. There is a thing that says this is our strategy.
Yeah, and I think it's very important for it to have in kind of what is your vision as a firm, how you're going to execute that vision, and also have some concrete issues in it, such as kind of KPIs, because then you can really see how you're doing against your roadmap. One thing I will say though about strategy document, I think for me it's the strategic document that I look at the most at the firm, and it's the one that's constantly changing, and you constantly have to innovate even when it comes to your own AI strategy as well.
Absolutely. And Shilpa, we were just speaking earlier off camera about how the innovation and the tech strategy has to go hand in hand with the overall business strategy of the firm. Could you just talk about that a second?
Yeah, and so echoing what Emily said, so even for us, it is a written down document. It has KPIs, it has dates, it has what level of resource we need to make it happen, what we are saying no to versus like as opposed to just saying what we are going to do. We also actually very clearly articulate what we are not going to do and why, because I think that's important. But all of this at the end of the day flows from the strategy of the firm. So what is the innovation strategy of the firm trying to achieve? It's trying to achieve the business strategy of our firm. So there are markets where we're heavily investing in. So how can innovation help us achieve that limb of our strategy? There's a people strategy of the firm. How can innovation help us recruit the best people? How can we get the best out of them? And so I think when we do have a separate innovation strategy, but all the strands linked to the global strategy of the firm. And so similar to what Emily said, like at our management level, the two documents have to be read side by side.
So well, let's just pick up on one point there. I mean, again, so, for people perhaps who are, listening in and going, well, so how does innovation help the business strategy? Isn't innovation just keeping up with technology? I mean, does innovation, adoption of technology and other factors actually provide a concrete benefit to the business?
Let's take a way of using technology in a slightly different way that would fall within sort of the wider innovation umbrella, right? So we have a strong focus on increasing diversity in our profession and at our firm. So a few years ago, we opened up virtual internships. So because our recruitment team can't possibly go to every single university, you want to be able to access talent from anywhere. Virtual internships were a great way of doing that, right? And then you look at the metrics after introducing something like that, and then suddenly you have really high quality talent coming from places that we wouldn't traditionally have necessarily had the bandwidth to go and recruit from. Right? So if your business strategy is bringing in more talent from more diverse groups, then this is an innovative way of helping get that done without necessarily having to hire loads more people to go to loads more campuses to do that for you.
Yeah, that's a great example. And Helder, I mean, for you, I mean, just sort of building on those two comments, I mean, when it comes to Bird and Bird, I mean, you're doing a big POC, and we'll come to that, momentarily. But I mean, was that prefigured with the strategy document, with the strategy plan?
Yeah, it's completely aligned with our 5-year strategy. Our innovation / Gen AI technology strategy is all aligned. It's was referred at Linklaters is side by side. In our case, it's the same document. It's part of the process. It's a chapter that is interconnected with everything. Like was being referred, is touches people, touches education, touches how we grow, how we do our business, how we want to share our own presence. It's aligned with all of that. That's why, yes, I will say we have a strategy, technology, where Gen AI is part of that, but it's part of our wider strategy that we are driving.
Gotcha. Okay, well, actually, just briefly, just talk about AI, and then we'll come back to it in more detail later. But I mean, obviously, the premise of this discussion is that we're in this era of generative AI, that the landscape has changed, that AI is making a substantive difference, that we're going to have to do things a little bit differently. So going back to Emily, I mean, you're part of a group within the firm that focuses on AI in particular, as well as your overall role as a partner. I mean, has or will AI actually change this general innovation approach? I mean, is it going to get into productivity? It's going to change efficiency. There may be changes in the way work is done, the way that money is earned, and so forth. This is generative AI isn't just like another little layer of the onion. It's a real change.
Yeah, and I think anyone who thinks that's a little layer of the onion, I'm afraid, is absolutely just not right about it. Fundamentally, it changes what the type of work we do, how we deliver it, productivity, and also how we get, as a challenge, as kind of as a leader in the business, my challenge is how do I get the best out of my people? And actually, people talk about, oh, well, isn't this like a great shame for junior lawyers and paralegals? And like, no. It actually frees up their time to do the actually really interesting work. So a really kind of silly example, kind of the use of Copilot. Now I have a set of cases that I run with a client. We have a weekly call with loads of different people joining the call at different times. And there used to be a poor trainee that literally used to have to sit there and work out what actions we had to take as a result of the discussions we had with the client. That's no longer their role. We use Copilot to do that. Of course, you need to sense check it. Of course, you need to make sure it's correct, very much like we did before. But actually, the trainee then helps implement all those actions as well. So I think it is fundamentally changes, and I think makes our life a lot more interesting. And there's all this discussion about, are we competing with AI? I don't think that's where the real issue is. The real issue is making sure that our competitors aren't using AI in a more impactful way than we are, so that we can remain ahead of the curve. And that's where the real challenge lies.
Well, two very good points there, and also the competitor points. Helder, I mean, when you were doing your sort of grand plan, did that come into it? Was it more inward looking, or were you looking at the broader market and sort of saying, well, if we sit on our hands, we've got a pretty good tech stack, but in a couple of years we're going to be out of date, or
we look at everything as I think everyone, internal and external, and what we notice, yes, some of the efficiencies, the most visible are internal ones. Emily referred this Copilot usage. We have a comment from someone very top at very high level in the organization saying, I don't do meeting minutes anymore. I use Copilot and so on. But we look internally, and you refer, yes, we are running a POC with some internal findings, but we are also looking how to put this also to our clients, and how we build solutions, how we collaborate. We start to see lots of interest in collaboration using the tools. And that is where we are also positioning our solutions and our roadmap inside our own strategy, where we want to go. And that is where we are right now.
And Shilpa, I mean, how much of this is growing internally? How much of this is coming directly from clients? Partners are going, wow, I've had like 4 different clients ask me about AI this week. We're going to have to do something. Or is it more just environmental, in the same way that in the 80s, 90s, the internet, email, and it just kind of like, there's like kind of like osmosis. You're just like, well, everyone's changing, we're going to change too. Or is it like more, specifically driven?
The demand actually came internally, much more. I mean, and it's been running for a while now, right? I think it is even before clients started talking about it with us. We've already had focus on innovation for many years now. So we have a champion network of people interested in innovation across the firm. We have, sponsoring partners. We have a whole infrastructure innovation that predates GPT or generative AI. That really came into its own in sort of like November, December 2022. So for us, at least, it was very much all our people were using it outside of work, and we're like, oh, but we could do this with it. We could do that with it. Have we thought about how, like the minutes, could we use it for X, Y, and Z, even before Copilot was released? So the initial demand for us very much came internally. Even the reason for building the chatbot originally way back in sort of March 2023 was more a risk mitigation. It was everyone wants to use this. Let's give them a sandbox in which to use and play and experiment with it. At that time, our clients were still saying, please don't touch this with a barge pole, because it was really early days. And so for us, we've been in the and that's helped with the change in culture and the training and the know-how that I'm sure we'll start talking about. But we've had a lot of demand internally, and also at all levels, like quite junior lawyers all the way through to quite senior management. This is transformational. What are we going to do about it?
And I guess that the clients have changed now as well. I mean, from what I pick up from talking to the GCs around the world, they're totally on board now, and the fears around data privacy have been dealt with, mostly anyway, and they're pretty confident.
I think getting there, I would say it depends on which sector, which geographies, what kind of work they do. But yeah, definitely, it's been a journey, and they're definitely much more comfortable today than they were, say, 12 months ago.
Yeah. And Emily, are you seeing that too? Do you feel that the clients are changing their attitudes? They're more, positive about it all?
I think I'm agreeing kind of with Shilpa, slowly but cautiously. And also you have to kind of like break it down a bit, don't you? Because clients are very interested in AI regulations and the legal service that you sell around kind of the EU AI Act. So that's kind of one part of it. The second bit, the more interesting bit, I suppose, the more relevant for our discussion, is the use of AI, so that we deploy as a firm when we provide legal services to our clients. And I think those discussions are becoming a lot more mature, a lot more interesting. I think those data privacy issues, all those concerns that when it first started off, are definitely allaying. But now we're kind of moving into a third almost phase, which is offering essentially consultancy services to the clients, i.e. what's worked for us that could work for them, that could help their GC office, that could help their transformation part of their business, and moving into that kind of more consultancy based approach to clients as well. So the conversation has definitely advanced than where it was kind of 2-3 years ago.
Gotcha. And let's bring Karen in now as one of, representing a very large
Mm-hmm.
vendor that's been heavily sort of into AI from the early days, from 2015, if I remember
Mm-hmm.
rightly,
Yeah.
and now with generative AI. I mean, just generally, what are you seeing in terms of market change and uptake?
I'm actually nodding along to what Shilpa and Emily are both saying. That's definitely what we're seeing in the market. I mean, for us and for me, innovation is really all about finding new ways to make things better. And whether that's reducing friction or adding value or getting better outcomes or doing things more efficiently, it's all about using what's available to do that. And what we're seeing is more and more people are adopting these because it just becomes more the preferred method of interacting with things. I think as Emily said, I think people are coming in or Shilpa, people are coming in and they're expecting to use this or using this more naturally in the way that previous, technical innovation became more prolific. And I think the more different ways people used to find it and the better the technology gets and the more mature it gets and the more people have tried it, then I think it becomes more of a go-to in solving some of the problems that were there previously. And I think if you have an innovation strategy, which is just about finding tools or things to use, then you just end up with an implementation strategy. But I think starting from what it is you're trying to achieve, what your firm is trying to achieve, I think generative AI gives you more weapons or more things to experiment with to get to those outcomes. And we're definitely seeing what Emily was saying about the trainees as well and younger people. Yes, not doing the tasks that are tedious before and spending more time learning. But I was talking to a firm this week who said they're seeing very heavy use of Lexis Plus AI with their trainees because what they were saying was, if I'm giving a piece of work to do, I don't have to go and ask somebody every so often, is this right, or check something. I can do it myself. And for more senior people, it's like saying, well, I've got that trainee doing the first draft of this as well. So what's interesting for us is how it just naturally fits into those kind of things that the people were doing and helping them to be a bit more independent a bit sooner.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, and there are so many different use cases. Well, I think there's a natural segue into the technology itself. Um, I think one thing that is different, I mean, okay, there was buy versus build debates previously, and there were non-legal tech products out there. And sometimes the difference between a legal tech product and a generalist product was just that the legal tech product had the word legal added to it. It was basically the same product. But let's just talk about this wave of AI products that are now available and how you sort out what to do, and does that connect to the strategy? So I mean, let's just outline a few. So okay, so you've got your good old-fashioned raw, let's just plug into ChatGPT and see what happens. Probably not a good idea. Don't do this at home, kids. Then you've got your Microsoft Copilot. Then you've got your Azure API into GPT-4 or whatever it is, and you're running that yourself. Then you've got your kind of getting a bit more sophisticated, building on complex refinement and application layers. So you're really getting into that build your own aspect. Then you get into something like Lexis or Thomson Reuters, where you've got a big platform of 20 different things with bits of AI, firing off in all directions. And then you've got your point solutions. We do this one thing, and we really focus on this. It's very, very complicated, and underlying it is all the same technology. And I'm not quite sure we've been here before, perhaps. Certainly not in the years that I've been in the legal tech world. So let's go to Helder. I mean, you're doing a big POC at the moment with the company, but before you got to that point, how did you? I presume you did look at all these different options.
Yes, we look at very different options. I arrived to Bird and Bird 12 months ago, and our team already had open playground, and I got surprised when I arrived to Bird and Bird, and we had 400 users almost weekly using that playground to experiment.
What can you just explain what the playground is?
It's basically we open a Azure ChatGPT playground, controlled and secure, where our people could test their ideas, could, with the help of our IT team, could also understand if their use cases are valid, and I think that gave us a bit of a understanding what can do or what cannot do, because that was it's very important, because people think this will be the silver bullet for their problems, sometimes problems they don't even have, but that process help us to understand, do we need a product, do we need to build, do we need to keep a hybrid approach? That honestly is what we are doing that. But since day one, we also understood that we need to balance the security and the compliance of all of this, and that is very keen to us. And then yes, we did the journey, or we are doing the journey, because this is a very long journey. On now we are testing products, but we keep our own approach. Our playground is open. I was this week with our IT team, and they are trying to solve some problems there with images and so on. It's very experimental still, but it's becoming much more embedded in our day-to-day, and that also helps the innovation process. People say, okay, let me experiment that by self-service. We are very telling people, use yourself, we will help you, but this is a self-service, and then we will drive where this needs to go. And some ideas fly, some ideas don't fly, and that is part of our process.
But do you use the playground to test out ideas, and then you go to the market, the legal tech market, and go, okay, we've been playing with this idea, it looks good, now we'll go to the market and we'll buy X product because X company only does this thing? Or I mean, do you just say, no, we'll build this out ourselves?
It really depends on the use case that we are trying to do. Sometimes it's a very niche problem that we are having, and that is one of the approaches. Other time we arrive to a moment, and we have an example on that, where we say we cannot do this because we don't have or the resources, or this is a huge project, and then we scope the market. Some of the things that we do is also more than a product, is there is someone out there that we can build a partnership, or helping to develop, or understanding, can we shape or help to shape the direction of that product? And that is where we are right now, and that is what we are doing. But it's all about the focus and what we really want to solve. There's no one size fits all.
So you're not wedded to any particular path. It's as long as you get down that path.
Exactly. And things are changing almost every day. It's new models, it's new vendors. I think everyone will relate with this. Every day you receive a new email from a new vendor, or you see a new article on Artificial Lawyer that someone got a funding of 10 millions in a country that you don't even expect. It's so fast that we continue our path, but we need to be agile enough to say, okay, for this maybe we take this approach, for that we take that approach.
No, makes sense. Emily, I mean, yes, go for it.
If I could just
please.
To Helder's point, so we are tracking. We have an emerging tech advisor who's tracking a lot of the AI products. When we got to 265 in his spreadsheet, we had to stop, right? But this is the genuine challenge. And coming back to what we talked about like right at the beginning, having a strategy, that's what really helps in this space. It's what are the real big use cases? What is the tech stack you already have? What is the AI roadmap of those products already, right? Because again, if you're already using LexisNexis products, they have an AI roadmap of their own. If they're going to build stuff out and that's coming out in 3 or 5 months, can you wait? Wait for them to do it, rather than you having to either build it yourself or bring in something externally and go through that entire procurement and infosec process, etc. Right? There are certain things that I would just call personal productivity. So Copilot in Microsoft, you assume that at some point most of us will be using it. It's not a legal tool to me. It's a general productivity tool for anyone in the professional services space. And then you look at like the use cases that require point solutions, and then you go to the market. But there's a lot of work that has to go on behind the scenes about making those bets on what the roadmap of the existing products you have is, Are you going to go with that? The providers, frankly, like there are so many startups. How many are going to survive the next 5, 10, 15 years? We've run 2 POCs in the last 12 months, and both companies have been acquired by larger companies. And honestly, when you're halfway through a POC and that happens, it's both great because you're like, fine, they're not going anywhere, but it's also a nightmare for the actual POC and how you're trying to, measure metrics and get your people engaged in using it, and suddenly that whole team is distracted because they're doing something for their own business. So there's actually so much thought, I think, that lands up having to go into that buy versus build. And if you add in that borrow, which is you're kind of betting on what you might buy or tweaking or there's just a lot there.
And out of it, I mean, it's a really interesting point. I mean, and have you done a POC or started to do a POC with anybody and they've gone bust or just disappeared? They they don't return your phone calls, kind of thing.
Too early, honestly, because it seems like if you have AI in your name, you're just getting money right now. And I don't mean that with disrespect. I genuinely think it's too early. We've done a couple where they've been acquired, which is great because we have the safety net. We've done a few where we've actually then looked at roadmaps of other products and gone, we're better off not bringing in this point solution right now because it'll take us so long to onboard them. It's not worth it. But we have actually also gone down because we have offices in so many countries, and we have like multidisciplinary teams and so many practice groups. There are solutions that are, for example, much better in the commercial real estate space than they are for a litigator. And they will definitely have to be separate tools for now, like till you get to the point where you can use the same platform for both. So we've not had anyone go bust on us, but it's been really interesting and fun to kind of go on their journeys with them, whether it's acquisition or a further fundraise, or sometimes a difficult conversation of, what, you're great, but it's just too much for us right now because we also a limited number of people trying to service a firm of our size. There's only that many procurement processes and infosec processes we can go through. So we also need to go with the providers that provide the greatest return for the use case that meets the needs of the most number of our lawyers at any given point in time.
Yeah. If I can just offer a different from the vendor point of view on this as well, because this is also, we also make buy build decisions kind of all the time on that scale, and it depends on the scale of something that you're trying to build. Because from our experience in this space, building something is only the first part. Maintaining that can be the larger burden in the long term. And people think about what it would take to build something, but you have to support updates, you have to fix it, you have to ensure it stays current and matches everything else that you're using. And that's a long-term, that's really a long-term effort that goes into that. But sometimes we will make these acquisitions that you may have seen with Henchman, because we're making that decision that building this versus buying in something that does that now fits our strategy and gets there sooner.
It's interesting that particularly for the larger companies like yourself, and I can think of 2 or 3 other larger companies. I mean, in some ways, you've almost got the same problem as Linklaters in that you are a large organization, but you're thinking to yourself, buy versus build. Do we build Henchman or do we buy them?
Or partner? Yes, that's always a consideration.
So just going to Emily, I mean, for you, I mean, do you have a sort of position on the buy versus build?
Yeah, and I think actually
both. I mean, obviously,
I'm just also really conscious that Helder, Shilpa and I all work for kind of large international law firms. And I think there's a real kind of interesting point here, which is who will have the better competitive advantage. Firms like us, who've got scale, who frankly can invest in buy products, because actually you have your build, you'll maintain that Karen's just been talking about, but then you also need your engagement, right? And actually it's the smaller firms, the more boutique firms, where engagement can be a lot wider and a lot more active and proactive. So I think there's a real kind of tension between kind of the larger scale law firms versus the smaller ones that will be more nimble. And I think that's kind of quite an interesting tension in the legal market at the moment.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, the resource, and like, let's do that now. I was going to hold it for later, but I think the resource issue is really critical, because, and also the engagement level. As you say, I mean, for example, like someone was saying to me the other day that they've got like about a 50% engagement with this new tool they've rolled out across the firm, and like some people were like, who were there were like, oh, that's not particularly good. And they're saying, you don't understand. It's like 50% engagement for a new legal tech tool is amazing. It's just like off the scale in terms of success. And I'm like, oh wow. But for smaller firms, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I was at ILTA the other day. What was it? It was August, wasn't it? In Tennessee, and I mean, it was talking to a whole bunch of small firms, and they're basically using ChatGPT. They're uploading documents with all the names crossed out into ChatGPT and using that as their main source of generative AI. And I was talking to one of the heads of innovation, if that was his title, at a very small firm from wherever, and he was basically saying, yeah, we just basically tell them to put in the names of Marvel characters instead for all the different client names, and then run it through ChatGPT. Because that's a way of maintaining security. But even though it's a bit of a ropey way of doing it, they might get real advantages there. They can take on more work, perhaps. They can eat up some of that. Like if a bunch of lawyers at Simmons & Simmons lose a few hours doing mundane tasks, it's not going to kill the firm. It's not going to slow you down too much, because you've got such scope.
Yeah.
If a small firm with, like, say 10 lawyers or 20 lawyers loses a few days, it's really going to hit their bottom line. It's really going to really slow them down. So that is interesting. But let's just talk about, sorry, go on.
Just in terms of the other side of that coin, though, if all the lawyers at Simmons & Simmons use AI, imagine what productivity gains and what efficiencies we would have.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, the big firms like yours, I mean, I'm so used to working with big firms, I don't really think of them as big firms, but the scale is vast, isn't it? I mean, if you only incrementally increase profitability through improved efficiency by a couple of percentage points, the follow through to the bottom line, would be enormous. If you're £1 billion law firm and you're starting to improve the profit margin by even just a small amount, the follow through for everybody is going to be a biggie. I mean, that's probably an extremely good way of selling it to the partnership. If any partners are slightly nervous about all of this. But let's just talk about resources.
Let me just add one thing there, Richard, to Emily's point is, yes, all these models of cost efficiency, they are models, and we have the KPIs and so on. But one of the things that you refer the engagement or adoption rate, the main challenge, at least from my perspective, is to keep this engagement constant, because we have much more than 50% on our engagement and some of the talks that we are doing. I honestly want to keep this engagement, and our strategy, or some of the strategies that we are looking, is how we keep people engaged to use these tools. It's not because right now it's a bit of the shiny new toy, but yes, we are creating models how to be efficient, how to give time back, but we need to be consistent, and this needs to run for the next years, the same way that we keep this. And I think that is something that we need to focus on, how to keep people engaged using the tools, because at the first moment that they will fail, they will say, this is not good, I will go back to my old process, even if it's typewriter. That's a bit funny. But that is something that I'm very keen to work, and we are working quite hard on that.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, isn't it? I remember in the past there were things where associates were getting kind of like innovation hours. Do you remember that? I don't know if people still do that. You could basically you could bill it, effectively to the firm. You could record it. I mean, do you need to financially somehow incentivize the use of this new technology?
I personally don't think that is the way. Of course, people need to be rewarded I think there are other ways of being rewarded and financially. And I think one of the things that we are seeing with the advent of Gen AI is the time back. And that I think that is the part that we will help people with. This time you can do more interesting things, or you can get time back to your family, whatever will be the KPI that we will use. I think that is what we need to focus on. This is a helper, and this will give time back. What we do with that time is some of the questions.
We haven't actually. We haven't had to use financial rewards just yet. I think for us, we've been doing a lot of storytelling, and we've been celebrating a lot of the success stories. We've been sharing a lot of things that haven't worked as well. Part of the beauty of this technology, and some of the frustration, is you can put exactly the same prompt in and get a very different response depending on the mood or the temperature, right? So, and it's one of those things. It feels like I now describe it as like you're teaching someone to drive a car. You cannot police every single way and every single route they take. You're giving them the infrastructure, you're giving them the driving lessons, and you will give them access to different types of cars, but they have to figure out how to get from A to B themselves and watch out for the hazards along the way. So the associates and the partners in some ways need to share their stories, because some prompts work and some don't. And sometimes they work better than others. And then they learn things and then they can share, and then you can put it into a prompt library and you can systematize it. But it doesn't need, it's more the celebration of what's working well and sharing of what isn't without any, like, that seems for us at least to be working a lot more than in previous iterations of any innovation journey.
Gotcha. No, it makes sense.
Because it's also really quick, right? Like you can see the results of your efforts really quick. If you're working on a deal that, like, start to finish 6 to 8 weeks, say, like a really compressed timeline, and you use this technology in a certain way, you can share that. You can see the results immediately. You can share that with the client. You can share that with the others on your team, and then you can share that with other members of your practice group. So it's that's the other thing. Like, it's happening so fast. The ability to share and connect these stories. We've not yet had to use financial incentives.
No, that makes sense. And Emily, I mean, how are you doing? You're sort of like building that sort of collective narrative joy. I
think it's slightly. We've done something kind of slightly different in that we have identified kind of what we call our AI champions, and they are really our top stars at the firm in each practice group who get out. Because the interesting thing about AI, right, is that it's the junior people that get it. It's not the partners, it's the junior people that are coming up through the ranks. So we've identified kind of a number of people at the firm who we call our AI champions, and we have them for all of our practice groups. And we have said to them they have to devote 300 hours a year, and that will count towards their billable target. So 300 hours is quite a hefty percentage of their time towards the use of AI, and also to kind of create those stories that Shilpa talks about. And what's been really interesting is the interaction between them in the different practice groups, because it's trying to have a coordinated approach, and what works for one group may not work for another, but there may well be an overlap that you may otherwise miss. And that's actually been a pretty, I think, useful initiative that we started, and was already seeing kind of our return on investment on that.
Ours is slightly different. It's interesting. So we have a champion network. We have associates. We have trainees, associates, and partners who are champions. We haven't given them specific number of hours that they need to allocate to making this happen, but we have separate projects, the strategic projects. On those, we have pulled out very specific individuals and carved out their time to work on it. And then, again, I'm not sure how many people are aware, we also have dedicated innovation lawyers to some of our practice groups. So those are transactional lawyers that have been effectively pulled out of the practice because of their interest in tech, and that's a full-time role. And they're almost like our translators between the technology function, the Gen AI program, and their practice groups. And they obviously interact with vendors as well. So we've got a little bit of a mix of different things in the mix, I guess.
Sure, but when you said that it's a full-time role, you mean literally it's a full-time role?
Yeah,
they're not doing billable hours anymore.
No,
right?
No, they they are ex transactional, and I'm saying ex because right now they are not doing transactions or they're not on matters, but they are lawyers that were in the practice doing deals and are now focused entirely on making change in those practice groups.
And where do they sit? I mean, if you were in the office, would they be in the next desk, or would they be sitting with the M&A
with
team?
the practice?
Right.
So if you're a banking innovation lawyer, you sit with the banking practice. You are no different from any other lawyer in that practice group. It's just that your focus is on making change in the practice, and so you're embedded in the practice in that sense.
Interesting. Well, this segues nicely to the resource point. I mean, I was talking to someone a while ago, and they were talking about they did a global rollout of a very sort of chunky generative AI platform, and they did it in every single office all around the world with their team. And I mean, one of the sort of, it wasn't so much explicitly said, but it was kind of obvious reading between the lines that there just was not enough people to do this thing and to manage it in a law firm with 50 offices, around the planet. I mean, do you need more people now? Because, let's say, that first wave of AI, you had tools like, say, Kira, Luminance, etc., that was for due diligence. And you had a little team attached to your M&A practice that dealt with those things, right? It was kind of quite manageable. But now every single lawyer, and not even just with lawyers, but the support staff, the professional service lawyer, the research lawyers, etc., all of these people are using this technology. So, in a firm of 3,000 or 4,000 people or more, do you need a much bigger innovation team now?
Shall I come in? Because my responsibility is also to run profit and loss. So I'll probably come from it from a different angle. I'm not sure we need more people, but I think it's all about repurposing people and kind of picking up what Shilpa was saying, kind of getting your transactional lawyer who's got kind of a real interest in this thing and repurposing. And I think that's where the exciting piece comes.
I agree.
Like a rebalance type exercise.
Yeah, you need more. There are some technical skills that law firms haven't traditionally had, right? We haven't traditionally had data scientists in law firms. So yes, those skills you will need. But to Emily's point, like, I don't think you need a larger innovation team necessarily. I think you need more people to be using it themselves.
Right. So you want more engagement. They'll teach themselves.
You want more. So you need that innovation team is now being deployed differently. They're doing slightly different things to help make sure that people in the practice are using these tools at the point of access, which is very different from the days of Kira and Luminance, where you had a dedicated team helping our practice use those tools. Now you don't need a dedicated team for me to teach you how to use ChatGPT. You can use it yourself, and that's the beauty. So it's a team doing something slightly different. It's making everyone more self-sufficient in some ways.
That's an interesting point, isn't it? It's not so much about education as such. It's actually about driving self-sufficiency.
Which is education, though, isn't it? Like, you're teaching them how to use it sensibly.
Kind of.
It's awareness as much as anything.
I guess it's like throwing people into the swimming pool. The old sort of Victorian method of teaching kids, just throw them in the pool and off they go. They'll sink or swim, and then sort of very carefully teaching them over several months how to do it.
Richard, you would never throw, like, I would just, can you imagine throwing a bunch of lawyers into using any sort of tech and hoping that they would not hate you forever if they started drowning? No, we would put them in the pool with an instructor and armbands and slowly take them out, which is a different, but yes, you'd put them in the pool because now they have access, yes.
Right. Yeah. But your expectations would be that they would learn quite quickly. You're not going to be kind of like holding their hand for ages.
Depends on the technology, how it evolves, right? I mean, they're clever people. The beauty of this is we're working with really clever people, right? So it's the engagement. What's in it for them? So how is it that if I have a really busy M&A lawyer who is like really focused on delivering the best service to the client, I need them to take the time out to learn how to use this in a way that helps them deliver better client service. So they're clever. They're going to get how to do this. It's the making sure you do it in a way that resonates with them, adds value to their life, doesn't cause more friction or more pain at 2 a.m. Right? That's the bit, and that's where the innovation teams help. It's that how do we help them on that journey?
Yeah.
Let's bring Helder. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I just want to say that we have a similar concept. We have people embedded in our practice that we don't call it innovation lawyers, but they are drivers of change, and that change is part of the innovation. They don't have the full responsibility to help to roll out the tools, but they create the sense that this will help. It's a process improvement. We see lots of this as a process improvement. It's not changing everything. Some of the even tools that are not Gen AI with this concept are being much more adopted because people are seeing the benefits. And what we are telling is you don't need to go to a room and learn all of this, click here, click there. You are seeing by example. You have soon we will roll out people to sit in the practice and sector groups to help them to better prompt or whatever, but we are not going this in this is how we do it, is how we can help you. And I'm pretty sure that we'll find moments that this will not help, and then we need to find the way to help them. And that is where we are looking on the innovation. It's help them to change, to get a better way of doing things. If we choose Gen AI, it's with Gen AI.
Yeah, help you to help yourself, kind of thing, rather than like herding them into a classroom and saying, right, everybody, this is how you do it. Just for the audience, so we've hit 45 minutes and we'll be going for about another quarter of an hour. But if you'd like to start sending in your questions, please feel free. The LexisNexis team are going to feed them through to us. Just to wrap up the main debate before we get on to answering some of the questions, which look pretty interesting. Where do you think this is all going now? I mean, along whichever axis is most important to you, whether it's the cultural change, whether it's the change inside your own team. I mean, where is this going? Emily, I mean, if we look forward the next few years, considering what an incredible couple of years we've already had, where are we heading? Where are we going?
Yeah, I think we're heading towards more interdisciplinary, if I get my word out, teams, and actually having the right skill sets and the people with the right skill sets in your team is really essential. And if you think kind of even 5-10 years ago, lawyers were lawyers, right? That's not the case anymore. And actually, when we advise clients now, we have data scientists as part of our team, data analysts, depending on who we're doing. And I think that's going to grow. And I think that's a pretty exciting kind of space to be in. And I think the kind of looking forward, I think the use of technology is just going to increase, and making sure that we remain kind of fit for purpose and relevant is going to be one of our biggest challenges.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is, as I often say, whenever I'm giving a talk somewhere, I just say, like, this is not blockchain, this is not smart contracts. This is for real. It's only going to embed deeper and deeper. Absolutely. Helder, for you, I mean, where do you see things going in the next couple of years?
I think we'll see an increase on looking at our own data because Gen AI doesn't come alone, comes with data, comes with a data strategy, how we use that data, how we enable the services. I think that will be one of the things that we will see much more importance on data. It's always the same. What you feed in is what you take it out, right? I think we will also see a big approach to security, not only security of the platforms, but also how people use it, and this comes with something that we touch: awareness, training, and so on. I think these are something that we will need to put into the balance of innovation. The security, the data, and again, how we teach and how we help our people, I think. And we'll bring the efficiencies, of course, but it's steps of bringing this bigger efficiency to the business.
I mean, the point about data is particularly interesting. I was talking to someone the other day who was suggesting that maybe law firms, once they've anonymized it, will start flogging as much of their own data as possible, as the LLMs start to sort of top out in what they can do. They're plateauing. They're hungry for data, and so do some of the big law firms. Just, hey, we could make a mint selling anonymized, obviously, data to them. But anyway, we'll come back to that another day for another recording. But Shilpa, what are your forward predictions?
I think similar. The one thing I would add into the mix is I think there is now a healthy respect for some of the more boring aspects of innovation that didn't get as much attention a few years ago. So, good old fashioned process mapping, for example. Like when you're looking at using generative AI, you need to know what the process is into which you're going to apply that tool, the difference between machine learning and generative AI. So, what I'm actually genuinely loving is the opportunity to start again. Because with a lot of these, there's no point automating a broken process. And the sort of going back to basics and reimagining what you can do if you started with a blank sheet of paper has been fun. I think the firm of the future, honestly, is probably the one that is able to do all of this as part of their muscle, as part of their DNA, like the ability to adapt constantly, to have their lawyers adapt constantly without it feeling exhausting. I think that is probably going to be the firm that wins in whatever market they're in. Or like the future facing firm is the one that can deal with change without it
Yeah,
feeling like a big
well, you
deal.
made several good points. So one, I think that the point about exhaustion is interesting, isn't it? Like, so you do a great big rollout and everyone's like, phew, thank God that's finished. Almost like recarpeting the office kind of thing, And then 2 weeks later, an amazing new model comes out and it's like, game over, new game begins. And you're like, oh my God, we've got to do this all over again. And like, yeah, you actually will have to do this all over again now. I think the other point is process mapping. And I think as we get into agents, and okay, I know there's a lot of talk about agents. We're not there yet. The agents at the moment are a little bit lumpy, but it will come. I'm pretty sure of that. So if we're going to get into process mapping, once we bring in agentic flows, that's going to be really interesting,
Yeah.
Karen, I'll let you quick word from you, and then
Very
we'll
quickly,
do some questions.
I just think this is going to move from a world where there are lots of various tools and point solutions that people are looking at to one where just generative AI is ubiquitous, because it's just the way that we do things. It's just the way we interact with things, because it's easier and because people will generally gravitate towards where you can see the value quickly. You can see what it does, and it will just kind of make things easier. So I think it will just become the way we interact with stuff. And the key to getting there is to make sure that people are aware and are experimenting with it, and that you find those opportunities to control how that's used, because change is going to come, and it's faster than it's been before.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Right, okay. To the questions. There's several questions about money, which I'd like to talk about, but there's several also about small firms. So, and we did touch on this, but we'll have to do these quite quickly. We've got about 9 minutes left. Any takers? So, what would you suggest smaller law firms do to start their Gen AI journey? So smaller being less than £1 billion, I guess. But that so from, let's say, the top 50 down to small firms, what's the best thing that they should do?
I suppose start experimenting with the technology that's available, right? And I often talk about this, and I need to find a much better way of articulating it, so bear with me. One of the things I often talk about is like creating those wow moments, those moments where you think, oh my word, this is transformational. And I remember my Copilot one, where the way if I'm doing a presentation, that kind of a detailed presentation that needs slides, is I write my own script and then I do my slides and then I bid my script. I remember thinking, I might use Copilot. So I uploaded my script onto Copilot and asked it to produce my slides, and it blew my mind, genuinely. Kind of within a minute, I had this most incredible slide deck with images that I literally tweaked, and I thought, this is amazing. I haven't wasted 2 hours of my time faffing around with the terrible kind of PowerPoints. And I think kind of experimenting with the technology and creating that kind of time for yourself to see what you can achieve with it is really key. But balanced against that is the fact that I think the psychology of lawyers comes into this as well, because I think it's fair to say that kind of that lawyers are perfectionists, and you've got to let go of that. You have to let go of that, because that's what's going to stifle innovation.
Right. No, I think that's a very good answer. So in summary, get in there, don't be scared, experiment. Obviously, watch your data, don't bleed your client data over, but aside from that, be careful, get in there, learn, have fun. Next question. Are you getting expectations now from the clients that because you're using AI, you're going to get a cost reduction, or they're going to get a cost reduction? Are you getting those kind of messages coming from the clients? Volunteers? Shilpa?
I'm happy to take that.
Yeah, go for it.
Not yet, because I think we're still at the stage where we're collaborating with our clients on their journey, and we're still on ours. We don't. There are some immediate reductions they get because we are using, for example, say Copilot to do minutes, right? So that if you're charging on a deal by the hour, then that reduces it automatically. But there is still a, how do we scale some of the usage that we're seeing? And we're not yet at the stage where we have seen tools work in exactly the same way across the whole practice or across the whole firm, in a way that we can then say, in every single matter, we are going to use it like this.
Right. So to summarize it, it hasn't steadied enough for them to start saying, if the, to reasonably expect you to start giving big reductions, because there's so many different things going on. It's
still earlier in the journey than, and I'm curious to know what, like, Helder and Emily are.
Helder, are you getting? We'll have to keep this one quick, just yes or no, really. But are you getting clients saying, "Hey, give me a reduced price because you're using AI now"?
That conversations from time to time pop up, yes, but it's not on that stage. And what I'm also noticing is the clients are much more open to understand how this can help them, rather than say, okay, you need to reduce my fees. Or they are very on the journey with us. And I see much more requests is, can we collaborate on this? Can we build something? Can we access to your system? Can we work on your system, rather than cut my bill by 50% because you are using technology? I think it is very similar to Linklaters and I believe others.
Yeah, no. Again, here's one that always comes up. It's an oldie, but it's a goodie, which is, as generative AI gets more and more into our workflows, which inevitably will, as we've just discussed, how do lawyers stay relevant? How do they stay competitive? Individually as a professional, what do they need to do to stay on top of things? Particularly if they can see parts of the things that they used to do as a junior lawyer, getting eaten up by like this generative AI Pac-Man, that's coming behind them, eating up some of their more process level tasks. I mean, anyone want to chip in on that one?
Yeah, I think people have to remain curious, right? And that's the thing at the moment, that things are changing at such a fast pace. You can't just sit there and think, something that I've been doing for 10 years, we're going to continue to do. You've got to remain curious, and you've got to work out how can you best deliver that advice for your client.
There's also there's a lot of what it's doing right now, and this may change in a few years. A lot of what the technology is really good at right now is not legal analysis, right? It is the summarizing. It's but it's not legal summarizing. It's just summarizing. And then you actually need a very good lawyer to work out if it has summarized it accurately or not, right? So it can extract XYZ clauses from X number of documents. It still needs someone to add the layer of, has it extracted the right clauses? And when you then have to summarize those extracted clauses, has it actually got all of the context in which the client has asked for that information? That's still very much a lawyer's job. It might change in 3 or 4 years, but right now, I think I'm very much in it will take away mundane stuff. Please use that time to do more interesting stuff, because that's sort of why you presumably went to law school and joined our firms, to do really interesting stuff. There's also the piece around, like, I don't know if anyone's used Notebook LM. There's a wonderful way of actually learning more using generative AI. Like if there's a 200-page piece of legislation that's come out, and you like put it through, and you can get a 20-minute podcast, and you're better at remembering things if you hear voices. That's a wonderful way of actually learning about legal concepts and legal changes and regulatory changes in a way that you wouldn't have ever been able to do so quickly before. So there's also a piece around generative AI actually helping us be better lawyers. It takes away the mundane, but also you can learn so much more using different sorts of tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this a little bit last week in the other LexisNexis webinar about education. But I think there's one point there as well, which is worth mentioning, is that it doesn't matter what the AI does or how advanced it gets, the law firm has to sign off on it, which means a lawyer who's experienced, who actually knows what they're talking about, signs off on the final work product. Incredibly, we're at the final minute already. So just to wrap up, so thank you to all the questions, and we don't unfortunately have time to do any more. And I believe this is being recorded, and if you have had to drop off, or you haven't seen all of the recording, the seminar, you will be able to see it later. Just a very, very final thing in this last minute. I think we can probably say that yes, you do need an innovation strategy. That it's not just an amorphous, fluffy thing. It is a written document, perhaps. This document actually aligns with your business strategy. That you do need an innovation team. That you should experiment both with your own tools and others, and that you should encourage lawyers very much to get their hands on and use this technology. So I'd just like to thank the audience. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you for your questions, and thank you very much to our very good panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And also to everyone who's watching, please look out for further LexisNexis events and webinars, which will be coming in the new year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
And we're out. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.